In this lesson, we will learn how to use Maya's mirror joint tool. I'm so glad that Maya has a tool like this because it can help us save a lot of time. Can you imagine if we had to repeat the steps that we've used for the left leg on the right side? Well, that would be very inefficient, right? So here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and mirror our left leg across. Now, something to keep in mind is that we can only mirror one selected joint at a time. But if that joint has a hierarchy, that entire hierarchy will be mirrored over. Great. Also, something to keep in mind is that Maya is going to use the parent of the selected joint as the plane that we mirror across. So if we had an object that this joint was parented to, and let's say that object was right on top of its child, well, then we would mirror across that object and not from the center of Maya. So since this joint is not parented to anything, let's go and have a look at this. We'll go to our outliner. You can see it is a child of the world, if you will. So if that's the case, then that means Maya is going to use the origin of the scene as our mirror plane. All right, sweet. So knowing that, let's go ahead and again grab the thigh joint and head over to Skeleton, Mirror Joint Options. Let's go ahead and reset the settings. So at the top we have our mirror cross plane. So how does this work? Well, imagine a plane being drawn between the two axes we have for each option here. So according to the default settings, we would mirror across the X and Y plane. So let's go ahead and have a look at this. Again, we're envisioning a plane being drawn between those two axes. So if we were to now orbit around until the X and Y overlap, here's where the plane would be drawn from, and that means that this chain is actually going to be created behind what we have selected. Let's go ahead and test this out. If we click apply, that's exactly what has happened. So that's not going to do anything for us, right? Let's go ahead and delete that chain. What's the plane we need then? Well, clearly that's the YZ plane, because we would mirror across this plane here from the positive X to the negative X. Let's go ahead and choose YZ. Fantastic. Now the next option allows us to choose if our orientation on each joint gets flipped or if it will remain untouched. So behavior will flip the orientation. What that means is that when we start to rotate our source joint and the mirror joint, they will mirror each other. And then orientation will cause both joints to rotate in the same direction. Chances are you'll stick with the behavior because it's easier to read animation that way. We know that when we use a value of, let's say, 10 in the y-axis of this joint, when we use the same value in the mirror joint, it's going to mirror what we see here. So sometimes animators might find that to be helpful for reading animation in case they have to animate directly on joints or on mirrored controls. And you can learn more about mirrored controls and advanced character rigging. So here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and use behavior. Now, we could also use this tool to quickly rename our joints. So let's do this. In the search for field, we'll go ahead and have Maya search for our L that we've added to our name to identify the left side. But we have to add a little bit more than just the L, because if our naming convention has more than one L, all of those L's would be renamed. So how do we get a little bit more descriptive? Well, simple. All we need to do is go ahead and add the underscores as well. So that's going to be underscore L underscore, and we will replace with underscore R underscore. So now when we click on mirror, take a look at what happens. You can see that each joint has been renamed. How cool is that? Also notice this, when we grab, let's say, the two thighs and we start to rotate in local mode, again, you can check for that by either holding down the E key and the left mouse button to get to your rotate tool settings, or you can go ahead and double click on the rotate tool and make sure it's set to local. Gimbal would also work as well, but I'm going to go ahead and choose local. All right, so watch this. When we now start to rotate, you'll notice that our joints mirror each other. How exciting. Fantastic. So that's how we work with the mirror joint tool in Maya. You can see how much time that saves. And that's it for this lesson. So in the next lesson, we're going to work on connecting our thigh joints to follow the mech's root, or our center of gravity control that we have set up.